was a kid from the SGV, otherwise known as San Gabriel Valley. I grew up in a town called Baldwin Park, and if you don't know where that is, it is between the cities of El Monte and West Covina. And if you still don't know where that is, then maybe you've heard of this particular place, In-N-Out Hamburgers. I didn't know this at the time growing up in Baldwin Park, but it In-N-Out was founded in my hometown, so that is our claim to fame. And this is an actual replica of the very first In-N-Out burger stand that is located in Baldwin Park. Um, I grew up there, and I spent my life, all my grade school years in Baldwin Park, and I have some great memories thinking back of those times. This is the Apple IIe, one of the earliest versions of the home computer. This came out 38 years ago, and this computer is very similar to me. It's not old, it's vintage. Why am I showing you this? I'll tell you what, for a few reasons. Well, first of all, these computers, when they came out, they were very, very expensive when they were released. I was living in Baldwin Park, which is a predominantly working class town. Most families did not have the resources, the financial means to be able to afford a computer such as this. And in fact, computers at the time, this is like early 80s, 1983, 84, computers weren't necessarily the most common thing in your household. But it was some sort of miracle that at that time when I was in junior high, at Sierra Vista Junior High, that we received some of these computers during my 7th grade. And our history teacher, Mr. Richards, and I'll never forget him, he was already computer savvy at the time, and he actually created a computer literacy course for these 7th grade students and 7th and 8th grade students in junior high. This was a huge deal at the time, because if you think about it, during this time, the early 80s, in a minority community, we were able to access this type of new technology. And I didn't know it then, but my ability to learn and use this computer would eventually help me along my journey. And I look back at this, and I'm very, very grateful for this opportunity that we had during my junior high years. Well, so this is me in high school in a group portrait for a class production of Neil Simon's The Good Doctor. When I attended high school, I did 4 years of drama class under the instruction of Marquita Williams, which up until that point in my life, she was my first African-American teacher ever. And it took up until high school for me to actually have a teacher who was Black. So as an educator myself, who is Asian American, representation is so very important in the classroom, because we as instructors can draw from our own lived experiences and bring that to the room. And these experiences may be something that may be in common with what you have lived through also. So as much as I loved acting in high school, it wasn't something that I was necessarily encouraged to pursue after high school, having Asian parents. Choosing a creative career wasn't necessarily encouraged. Let's just put it that way. And I think some of you may understand where I'm coming from with that. So I thought I wanted to do something with engineering at the time. So I ended up going to Cal Poly Pomona and majoring in electrical engineering. After a few semesters, I realized that just wasn't for me. And first of all, I was really horrible in math. I was horrible in calculus. So proving that the model minority for Asian Americans being or excelling at everything is completely a myth. Calculus was just something else. So what did I end up doing? I ended up changing my majors and going into computer information systems, still at Cal Poly Pomona. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do at that time with this major, but there was something called the internet at the time. This is the early 90s, okay? This internet wasn't full blown yet. So during this time, I heard about this thing, and it had something to do with computers, so I thought maybe this is the right thing for me. And of course, this was me going back to that early interest of computer technology that I was introduced to at a fairly young age, back in junior high. Now I know computers are prevalent in, I think, really early in grade school, but at the time it was really innovative and very new for us. So I ended up going into this major, and I ended up working in application development, or coding, if you will. I ended up working for Southern California Gas Company in downtown Los Angeles, and then I ended up working for a tech company later on in Santa Monica. And during this time, the late 90s, early 2000s, venture capitalists were just pumping money into these small internet companies without cranking out a profit. And at some point, 2001, all those little internet companies just burst. The market fell out under them, and there was a lot of unemployed IT professionals in 2001. It was a great time while I was working in this field, because there were a bunch of 20-something-year-olds running the company. I had my surfboard in my cubicle. We used the conference room table as like a ping pong table when we weren't having any meetings. So just a bunch of kids running the company. Like all things, they come to an end. So I got laid off. I didn't know what to do at the time. No one was really hiring any more IT professionals because the market was flooded with them unemployed. So what did I do? The next best thing was to go travel. So I ended up going to Costa Rica. I ended up, at the time, I was actually taking Spanish courses at Santa Monica College, and I heard about this student study abroad program in Costa Rica where you would live with the family and study Spanish, and then you'd be living in Costa Rica. So I went over there to participate in that program. And this is me with my surfboard at a beach, and that's an actual pig that was living on the beach. And I look back at this photo with some really fond memories, but this was a crossroads in my life. I had to make a decision after this Costa Rica trip. What was I going to do when I went back to California? Was I going to look for a job that didn't exist in the IT market, or was I going to go do something else? And at that time, I thought, why don't I just do something else? I'll use my tech skills, and maybe I'll freelance as an IT professional, and I would go back and pursue that one thing that I was in love with in high school, and that was acting. So I ended up going back to school. I ended up going to study acting a little bit more seriously now at the Lee Strasberg Theater and Film Institute in Los Angeles. This place is located in West Hollywood, and this is where they teach method acting. And it was really great feeling for me to be back in school in a different path, a very creative path at this time. So I studied there. I came into contact with my old drama teacher, Marquita Williams. She actually studied here as well. So it was really interesting for me to talk to her, and she once again became my mentor on this new path, this new journey that I was on. So here's a picture of her. This is actually a more recent picture. That's Marquita Williams. She was there. She so happened to be at a graduation for her son, and I was actually photographing at USC at the time, covering the graduation. So it was a nice reunion and a surprise for me to see her. But yeah, I was able to get in contact with her and let her know, like, hey, I am actually pursuing acting now after all these years. And so she was definitely a great guide for me. Here I am filming a Jack in the Box commercial in downtown Los Angeles. That is Mark Ivanier on my left here. Recently, you could find him on the Netflix television show with Hilary Swank. It's called Away, where he's playing a cosmonaut. The great thing about this picture is that behind me is the building where I used to work at straight out of college, where I got my career in application development and in computers. And I ended up filming a commercial literally almost right in front of that building. And it was a kind of a really full circle moment for me, because I told everybody in the office saying, I'm going to leave. I'm leaving this career to pursue acting. And there I was some years later filming a commercial there. As much as I really enjoyed the The process of acting, whether it's theater or in front of the camera, it was a very difficult and it's very challenging. It's like any other creative field. And as an Asian American, I found that I had very few opportunities that were offered to me in terms of roles that weren't so stereotypical. So I was very frustrated, a frustrated actor. Here I am on set doing an independent feature film out in Arizona. This was like one of the last big things that I did. And at this time, I was already kind of in a different headspace. I was kind of, like I said, frustrated like any other actor. And I needed some other outlet to channel this creative energy. So what do? I go back to school like I always have been doing. It's like this recurring theme in my life where I'm re-educating myself and reinventing myself. This time I go back to school and get into photography. Back when I was in high school, I also took a photography class, and that was something that was interesting to me. So I thought, well, why don't I go back into that to see where that would lead me? So I went ahead and went through the program here, and I ended up doing some commercial photography work. Here's some one example of some fashion that I did for a particular magazine. And here's some commercial product work. Like any other creative field, it was still a difficult thing to sustain. And you needed to have some inner drive to keep you going. So I felt frustrated again, like any other creative career, and the lack of opportunities. And this time, it was just a very competitive field. So I had to dig down and ask myself, what was it that made me go pursue acting, and what was it that made me pursue photography also? There must be something there. And it wasn't necessarily about making a whole lot of money. And I came to the realization that it was always about self-expression. So I decided to, besides while I looked for commercial work, I also decided to pursue art using the medium of photography. This is a series called Women, where I'm exploring the idea of gender roles. Throughout my life, my racial identity has been a recurring theme, and unfortunately, that has come into question in the last year as we have seen a rise in hate crimes against Asian Americans. So I wanted to use my lens to explore the many facets of identity, and here I'm trying to push the boundaries of gender by turning masculinity on its head by having females dress up with these male archetypes, and I photographed them in this particular manner. And the question is being, what does it really mean to be masculine? Do you have to be actually male? And I ended up after while pursuing art through photography, some of my work would get recognized. And here's a shot from that series, from that women series, featured on the LA Times. And I thought, okay, well, I struggled a lot, with pursuing some sort of path in acting, but here I am getting some recognition in a different world altogether through the fine art world. So I thought, well, maybe there's something about this path. I'll continue on with it. So here I am exploring again identity. This time, identity through body art, and because I have complete control of who I cast, so I am actually the casting director for my shoots. I try and make sure that I cast subjects that have been part of my reality. I've been exposed to all types of people growing up, and I want to make sure that that's reflected in my work as well as a little bit of humor and comedy here, as expressed by my friend Sarah. She has actual tattoos of the Converse logo on her ankles. And again, still exploring ideas of identity, and just casting people that is based upon my lived experiences. This is the series called Wet. where I wanted to explore wet fabric on skin and see what kind of shapes and textures that would create. And then I ended up embarking on this documentary, sort of kind of accidental. I wanted to visit my friend in Denmark in 2015 during that summer. And at the time, I asked him before I left, I said, if I come visit you, will I be the only Asian in the whole country of Denmark? And he proceeded to send me a bunch of links to all his Asian friends who are from Denmark. And I thought, well, what are all these Asians doing in Denmark? Because at the time, I'm thinking Denmark is a very homogenous country, blue eyes, blonde hair. There was just so many Asian friends he had, and he also told me that they were all Korean and adopted. And I thought to myself, whoa, there's definitely a story here. Do you think I could interview some of these people and maybe just take some pictures of them? And he said, well, I can introduce you to them. It's up to them if they want their picture taken and to be interviewed. So I went out there in 2015 with the intention of just enjoying the time visiting Denmark, and also with the mission of maybe coming up with a few photo stories. And here I was able to actually interview some people and talk about their experience growing up as ethnically Korean, but 100% culturally Danish. They speak Danish. They don't have any real ties to Korea other than being ethnically Korean. And so I thought to myself, I know I have a connection with them, because even for me, growing up here in Southern California, I have felt an outsider in my own country. And that was my connection with them. I'm not adopted, I'm not Korean, but we had this connection of feeling like the outsider. Up until 2016, I have never experienced such division in America, at least personally. And I felt that as an artist, I needed to do something that addressed that. And again, going back to identity, which has been a recurring thing in my life, and now I'm using art to express myself in that direction. So what I wanted to do was create something in 2016 after the election to remind all of us that we're still Americans. As diversified as we are, that is actually our strength. So I decided to photograph my friends and their families, because, as I said before, my life experience involves all types of people, and I wanted to include that in this particular series. This was called We the People, and it was released on Inauguration Day of 2017 from the last administration. This picture is pretty special for me. This is my childhood friend, Mike Orozco. I've known him since second grade. And this is his father-in-law, Jesus, who passed away, unfortunately, last May due to COVID-19. So here I am in the Arts District in downtown Los Angeles with two of my pieces up advertising a gallery show at Art Share LA, where my work was featured as one of 5 featured artists for that exhibition. And it's a significant milestone also in my life because I was still struggling to find a career in the commercial photography world, yet I'm getting recognized in the art world. So I wanted to make sure I paid attention to that and at least experience it and recognize that and enjoy that and recognize that I'm actually having an effect in that particular world and in that path. So it was one of my proud moments here, seeing my work displayed in that manner. And then we get to last May, and George Floyd is murdered by a Minneapolis police officer. And if you recall, last May in Los Angeles, we're in lockdown for the pandemic, and we were given orders. Actually, even given curfew orders not to be outside. Well, they were having a peace vigil at the Pasadena City Hall, which this is where I live in the city of Pasadena, for George Floyd. And I was kind of torn. Should I go out? Are we supposed to be even doing this? But then I said to myself, I have to go out. I have to be part of this moment and document it. It is such an important thing to be a part of and to witness there in person. So I went out with my camera and documented this vigil in Pasadena City Hall. And I started to look back at all my imagery that I've taken, even when I was a student of photography. And I realized that I've always been trying to say something. This goes back to with identity in my work. And as an artist, I felt so restricted during the pandemic. This time last summer, I wanted to produce something, but I felt very limited in what I could possibly do. So I started looking back at my archives and realized I did have some things that were addressing our current situation. But I couldn't take it any longer. I had to do something about what was going on. And so I went out and collaborated with an artist friend of mine. And that's what you do. You collaborate with your artist friends and you both create, and you will create work together. And I still do that till this day. Collaboration with your peers is so important. That's how you can grow as a person, as an artist as well. And I created this last summer. This is my very talented friend, Pat Payne. She's a poet, artist, installation artist. And she actually made this noose wrapped with the American flag. And her telling me this was, she said she even had a struggle. She had struggled even creating this prop for this photo shoot that I wanted to create as a reaction to what was going on in our country. And as an artist and as a human being, I had to go through my own personal struggles as well. And I looked through art again to express myself. This is 2018. I was going through a time where I felt like I was drowning. I felt like I didn't know, frustrations from trying to find a commercial, photography career, and just other personal changes in my life. So I felt like I was just kind of just drifting afloat. So I ended up creating this series called The Pond, where we have these women of color who are in this sort of state of life and death and sort of trying to find their way to survive in life, which I think is metaphoric for women in general, finding their place in this life. And I was fortunate enough to have my work featured on a billboard on Fountain and Highland in Hollywood as part of the Billboard Creative's annual public art show. Every year, the Billboard Creative has a show where they select artists from all over the world and feature their work on billboards across Los Angeles and convert those billboards to public art installations. So again, this was another milestone in my life to see my very Filipino last name alongside two very strong women of color portrayed in my art on a billboard in Los Angeles. This has come from a long way from Baldwin Park to now, and so many different changes along the way to get to this point. And this leads to where I am today. I am an instructor at Santa Monica College in the photography department. And I'm also an instructor at the LA Center of Photography, which is now located in Culver City. I really enjoy teaching, and I'm still in photography, and the fact that I can see that light bulb moment in my students from all ages when they discover how to tell their own stories through their own lens is such a big deal to me, and it's what keeps me in education. I don't know what's ahead from this point forward. I'm going to remain open as I always have been, and I'm still going to pursue creating art and expressing myself. And if I could leave you with anything, I want to say that success should not always be measured by the dollar amount. You have to define what success means to you. For me, it's the ability to express myself and having my voice heard and having an impact on others and possibly to a future generation. So I want to leave you with this. Resisting change is resisting life. The meaning of life is to be lived. Bruce Lee. You can find me here at IG Rollence at photo or my website rollence.com.
Students, if you have any questions for Mr. Patugan, I know it's lunchtime, but there's one question in the chat before they leave. Mr. Patugan, thank you so much for talking to our kids and inspiring them. It's very, very inspirational, your speech, and especially very appropriate during this time of all the things that's occurring socially. One of the students asking, how did you get in this line of work?
In terms of photography, well, when you go to school, you end up building your network. And I think that's very important in any industry. You build your network, your friends, your classmates, you connect with one another, and you end up helping each other out. So I ended up interning for a photographer a few times, and you end up making connections there, and you eventually start getting work that way. And at the same time, you can still shoot for yourself, meaning, you do your own projects and that becomes your portfolio.
You've mentioned two very important things so far. I mean, in addition, a lot actually, but networking and collaborating.
Yes.
You never burn bridges. You will never know the individuals that you will meet down the line. For example, I've had a lot of my former students who has done work here and has done observation hours because they want to pursue whether it's teaching or counseling. But yeah, never burn those bridges. Collaboration is key, you guys. Anything else? A lot of the kids are saying, thank you, teachers. The kids are very appreciative. We had 67 students today.
Great.
Thank you so much. And is Mix Moy here? Mix Moy and no? I think they were mentioning, Mr. Patugan, they wanted to invite you. We have the Asian Lives Matter. I think we have a club or something, but I'll definitely mention to you in case you want to participate with our club and be a speaker. Yes. Miss Delcom, our dance teacher, thanks you. Miss McManus, very inspiring.
Shipley here. Hi, Rollence. I'm Mr. Shipley. I teach photography. Thanks. This is the second time I heard you talk, and it's really great to learn about your work and your kind of where you came from and where you go, and it's really inspiring. I've always known about Santa Monica College as well, and the incredible photo department down there. But maybe at some point we could talk about it, and I'd love to learn more because a lot of my students are really into photography, and they need access to those resources at Santa Monica.
For sure. If I could say anything, I'm very proud of our school, our department. We've really tried to break down the financial barriers for students to pursue photography, where you can rent everything, including the camera. So you can actually just show up All you need is motivation and drive, and we have everything that you need there. Before, when I was going there, I needed to buy all kinds of things. It was very, very expensive, as you know. But now it's provided for the student. They just need to sign up.
Well, that's super neat. That's super cool. Yeah, we do the same thing here. It's like cameras, everything, just get it in their hands, and hopefully they have the energy, like you said, and the commitment and the try and do it, because it's a lot, you know.
Yeah,
a lot. Like, people don't realize it, but shooting and putting together projects is a lot of work, you know.
It is a lot of work, yes.
But yeah, again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Shipley. Ms. McManus, our other art teacher, is in the house. Did you you said a very nice word to Rollence. Are you there?
I am. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I was just saying we work so hard on helping the kids bring their identity and their personal content into the work, and it was just such a fresh experience seeing how directly you're able to do that, to really bring your concerns and have them be so tangible. And I think it was just really exciting for our students to be able to see that, and I'm hoping we can have you back more often.
Yeah, I would love that. And if anything, I want to reiterate, as Christine was saying, you know, collaboration. You know, look to your peers, look to your network, and that's how a lot of my portfolio is based upon people who I know helped me get to this point, and I'm helping them vice versa also on their journey as well. So you can't do this alone. It does take a village to do everything.
No, definitely. Once we get back to in school, I mean, we'd love to have you, because a lot of our students do go to Santa Monica, and it would be nice to have that face-to-face interaction with them.
Yeah.
And you know, being a freshman out of high school, it would really, really help them gain that confidence as they navigate through SMC. But anyhow, so with that said, I have to go to supervision. Thank you so much again, Mr. Patugan, and